even you ask a Chinese so-called AI called DeepSeek, who is Ai Weiwei? Then after 4 or 5 seconds says, let's talk about something else.
How does it feel to be an artist who's bigger than any of their pieces of art, largely because an authoritarian state arrested and interrogated you to try and silence your voice? Today I'm joined by artist and dissident Ai Weiwei to talk about censorship. But we talk about so much more than just the Chinese state. We talk about Gaza, we talk about Israel, we talk about TikTok, AI. And weirdly, it turns out that I'm the first journalist to actually ask what his political philosophy is. I hope you enjoy the interview. Ai Weiwei, welcome to Downstream.
It's really nice to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. I read your book about censorship, and one of the things I was really interested in is that you talked about internet censorship. Just this week, TikTok's been taken over by a close Trump ally, Larry Ellison. He's in charge of the recommendation algorithm. And I suppose I wanted to get your thoughts about the roles that corporations play in censoring free expression.
Yes, normally we talk about censorship, we always point fingers to, some kind of classic authoritarian state. And, they point fingers to China, to North Korea or other places, maybe Iran or, whatever. But actually, I think the censorship is just as much in the West, in authoritarian, in the so-called democratic society, because this society are heavily controlled by the rich entrepreneurs. They own those kind of media platform. And recent example is TikTok. Why US have to make such effort to cut off the Chinese connection, but to have their own TikToks only because the narrative they want to control. They think what TikTok did is stronger than the traditional media combined. So they want really to be influential on youngsters' thinking and behaving. And it's crazy when I just say in the news when the CEO and clearly announced certain things which is really troublesome. This is the typical example.
I read an interview where you said to the journalist, it's not only in China where your phone is listening to you. Our phones are listening to us all the time. And I thought about the fact that I take my phone everywhere. I take it into the bathroom. I'm looking at a camera when I go to the bathroom. Is it weird for you as somebody who has been surveilled, you've had listening devices planted in your studios, that ordinary citizens have become so casual about privacy? We don't seem to care about privacy anymore.
Yeah, the privacy will be a word people later would check what does that mean. You have privacy in the modern society, especially with today's technology. I don't think anybody can claim privacy anymore, because we are basically as a nude person under this kind of surveillance. They know not just what we are eating. They know who we associate with, what kind of product we're buying, and what kind of private chat we are with our lovers, or even, the most hidden behaving still, it's no longer like that. And it's going to be more like that. It's so sophisticated. And if they want to get anybody, that just take a second.
But is there something about how it's changed us? 20 years ago, if you said to someone, when you go to the toilet, there will be a camera looking at you, they would have gone, you're crazy. Whereas now all of us are just going,
I think you make a great point, because what is privacy? How that relate to humanity, relate to our mind, and how it affects our, you know, our way of behaving? Do we still have a space for exercise our mind or even to make some mistakes? So those psychologically would change our mind, and this is a very very fundamental problem with when we lost the so-called privacy, and I don't know how much we still have as an individual because we are being clearly smoothed out when we don't have that little difference, and that's a true problem.
You use a great phrase in the book, which is kill the chicken to scare the monkey. So there is something about seeing other people censored or seeing other people publicly shamed, which makes us self censor. Could you tell me a little bit more about that concept?
Yeah, the authority in the old time, they have to. They, of course, they cannot control everybody. The technique is not so broadly being used or applied. So they used to take a few people and to scare the rest. Like my father was a poet and very very well known poet, so they just exile him. So the teaches all the writers to say, "Hey, just look at him. If he can be touched, then everybody can be touched." When I got arrested, all the people who was actively online in China would say, "Come on, if Ai Weiwei can get arrested, then we all can get arrested because this is obvious." So that's the best tactics for authority always to pick out the individuals as a sample for the broader opinion, or so that is a very powerful act, and it's very efficient. The problem is that is make the whole society become a silent, not just the one who wants to be active, even the one who just learning how to speak, or in the high school or in the universities or in any environment, they will learn. They will say, this will make your life unsafe, uneasy, and you can never achieve your goal if you make this kind of mistake. So we can easily say it's very profound tactic to make people have a to be self-censored.
Do you see that happening in the West? For example, the treatment of pro-Gaza protesters in the US and the UK?
Well, it seems we are trying to illustrate the very open conditions. We can see people who openly speak about Gaza, even just questioning that, not on any side, just questioning, why children or innocent children or women has to be killed, why Gaza can be restored as a tourist, like a Disneyland. All those questions can be really harmful for anybody. We see uh, students or professors or dean of school has been dismissed in U.S. in the most famous universities, and of course those actors or editors, they all being affected if they're so-called not on the right side, but the right side is the wrong side. So, and yeah, that's very harmful. That would really redefine our society to say, what kind of society is this? And that's very polluted or deeply polluted and poisoning.
You've spent a lot of time living in Germany. Have you been shocked by the authoritarian crackdown on pro Palestine speech from them, or did it not really surprise you?
It did surprise me, but also bring me to area for to really examine why they have to do that. Why society like Germany would allow people to really beat up people with this kind of brutal tactics and with very peaceful and demonstration, and they are all they want is to free Gaza, or to stop the genocide. So for Germany, always trying to say they are they want they are how do you say, regret of the historical mistakes, but I think they are doing what they did in the 1930s. If you look at those police, they are just so blindly and brutal, and the society seems allow them to do so.
So it's the same fascist impulse, just a different target.
I think so. I think all those kind of police act on the states as it behaves define a society. When we see how they're dealing with protesters, basically normal, but often they just define what kind of state they are in.
Sorry to interrupt your downstream with more downstream news, but myself and Aaron Bastani will be live and in the flesh at Earth Hackney on the 16th of February. We'll be talking about the paperback launch of my book Minority Rule, which has a brand spanking new afterword. And Michael Walker will be helming the undercard, interviewing Dan Evans and Shanice McBean. If you want tickets or simply just want to complain about how much they cost, go to Dice and there will be a link in the description. Hope to see you there. I want to ask about your own experiences in China and also your father's experiences in China. In the eyes of the Chinese state, what was the threat that you posed to them? What was the threat that your father posed to them?
It's a good question. My father is a poet. Is most kind and soft in the daily life, but of course his mind can be brilliant and can be sharp. And he speaks the truth. And I think my act is also always asking for truth, always demand for truth. It's very much like as an artist or as a poet, truth is a very essential nutrients for our thinking. Without the truth, it's I don't know how can we define an artist or writer without seeking for truth. So it's like a nature of this kind of profession or individual. So when authority, they cannot accept it. They think this would somehow shaking their way of control. Or so I think that only tells why seeking for truth and speak out of truth and freedom of speech are so relevant and so important, because it touches the foundation of authoritarian state, because they avoid to reveal what really happened. And my experience is even you're not just defending for truth or justice. Truth is a fundamental principle for the justice, right? So even you don't do that, even just your attitude would make them very nervous, because your attitude is somehow arrogant. You think, yes, they do have a power. They can make you disappear, they can exile you, or they can put you in jail, but still they cannot shake your attitude. You still look at them, you think you're more powerful than them because you're on the side of truth.
Why did you become an artist and not a journalist? It sort of sounds to me that you could have been a journalist, and the work that you did naming the children who died in the Sichuan earthquake, to me sounds more like journalism than art.
That's authoritarian. Interrogator told me, said, Weiwei, you are artist, but you did what journalists should do or what lawyers should do. Why don't you just be an artist and you? But for me, an artist is a journalist because we are always trying to get the right answer about the facts. And also, we are also lawyers. We try to protect the basic rights of individual. So, in in my sense, I think it's one thing. My art is always related to humanity, justice in the society, and yeah, that make my art different.
That sounds like a very socialist view of art, if you don't mind me saying.
I would say so. I would say my voice relate to the people I don't know. They have no voice, and they don't even not even conscious that voice can help them. So
When you were arrested and interrogated, what was the experience of that like? Were you shocked that it had happened, or had you been prepared for it? You knew it was coming one day.
um, I was prepared because my father was exiled, was in the prison 80 years ago, and he did nothing. He just, as an artist, organized some leftist organization in art. So he was sentenced for 6 years. So I always think, oh, the only thing I would be jealous is my father because when he was in the early 20s, he was sentenced. And I would never had that chance to be in jail. That originally I said I cannot match him because it's impossible. But later I realized they can put me in jail anytime. But what surprised me is the kind of style they put me in jail is not give me a chance to explain, but rather put a black hook on my face and drive me to a secret location and illegally detain me. It's like kidnapping, but I was kidnapped by a state. So that surprised me. Why they have to use that kind of tactic? They can just knock on my door to say, "Well, we want to talk to you." So I'm ready. I'm ready to talk to anybody or explain my position and have a discussion. But they secretly detaining me. Later, I realized it's just trying to scare me to say, you're vulnerable. Nobody can protect you, and the state certainly can do something which beyond your imagination.
When you were being interrogated, or at least the way you've described it and recreated it in your own work since, you've sort of highlighted the absurdity of some of the questions and some of the things they were saying. When that was happening, was there a part of you which felt a bit superior to the people who were asking you stupid questions, or were you frightened of them in the moment?
Well, gradually I realized people in front of me, there are different levels of a police person or a public security person or all kind of people. They are representing certain uh, ideology of the state. So definitely, I'm a offender of their principles. But at the same time, as an individual, they're human beings, and I talk to them. They are also emotionally involved. They also tell. Normally, you don't think that way, but they do tell what in the bottom of their heart. So that also impressed me because I have two possibilities. One is give a zero conversation to them because I'm not even arrested. But I decide to take the second option to have a communication, to talk whatever they want to know and to explain my positions. I think that is very successful because you always have to see we're all human. We all can, if what I defend or what I trying to make effort, if I cannot convince the people in front of me, I'm total failure. But I do think we achieved a lot. I said we is, me and the one as someone against me, and so
Can I ask a question which might annoy you?
there's no question can annoy me. I really eager to hear anything can, annoy me.
So the question is this. Your arrest and interrogation enhanced your status as an artist in the West, and you became Ai Weiwei, the Chinese dissident. Do you feel in some way that you, the man, has become more celebrated and has had more impact than any of your pieces of art?
It's not it's a very normal question. I give you the answer of my interrogator. After 81 days, they very sincerely asked me, say, Weiwei, do you think if without our pressure or what we really made you, or like this kind of hardship or difficulty life, you still can be so famous in the West? I said, impossible. I said, only take a strong enemy, make me as a hero. So they said, yeah, that's what we think. I said, yeah, don't push me too hard. And which is true, but it's only why it's true because when people are hungry, like in the West, they are thinking it's such a rare quality to be brave and to really stand up in defending those very valuable rights. So I become some kind of hero, but I don't like to use that words. But still, it's like when people are very hungry, you provide them, bread and butter, so they feel happy. But if they are very hungry, you don't provide that. You only give them vitamins. Maybe they're not so happy, So I think that's why people, in the broader sense, they think, they appreciate what I do rather than who I am. I'm an artist. What I do is have a more aesthetic and a moral foundation rather than just act. It's not an act. It's not performance. It's rather what I believe, and that belief make my art different. But people, of course, would have less sensitivities about art, but rather about social justice. So, of course, I think I'm being very broadly misunderstood, but which is fine.
Something that you wrote in the book was that when a work of thought or expression gains widespread public acceptance or adoration, it often signals a lack of depth or a fundamental misunderstanding of its purpose. Do you think that your work has been received in that way in the West, and people have misunderstood it or missed something because they're seeing you as Ai Weiwei, the hero?
I think maybe 80% is like that. But very often I walk on the street, someone would say, wait, can we take a selfie? I said, yeah, why not? She said, I will give to my daughter because she will not believe I met you. I said, yes. Then very often they will say, please keep what you're doing. It means so much to us. Almost all of them were saying that. I would say, how could they tell artists what they're doing as means so much to them? I don't know them. What's their life? I don't know the background. But that sentence are very touching me. I think a few artists would get that kind of response. People think artist is famous. Famous for what? Because for what? Because they can have a higher social status or make more money or stuff like that. I don't think people admire that much about artists in that aspect. So I feel if my work can really encouraging people to say, I'm defending social justice, I'm defending basic human rights, freedom of speech. Those, I don't care about my work that much. I do care about the value of my work carries.
And do you judge the value of your work by its political meaning for other people?
Actually, I've been forced in that direction, but I really fully appreciate I have the opportunity to use my humble work to carry this some light, you know, and to speak out for majority.
What's the difference between how you've been censored in the West versus how you were censored in China? Because you're in the strange position of having had your work cancelled in both settings.
Well, that's really complicated. In China, I almost had no exhibition, and on social media, my name uh, can be deleted. Even you ask a Chinese so-called AI called DeepSeek. I tested. I said, "Who is Ai Weiwei?" Then after the quick responses after, but it's a little bit longer than they should answer this kind of question, right? It should take 1 second, but for them maybe keep rolling and for 4 or 5 seconds says, let's talk about something else. It's so funny. And it's AI, DeepSeek. And so I think with this successful censorship, fewer people know me in China. Of course, people study art may know me, but the answer can be completely polluted. Think I'm some kind of Western ideology's agent, to trying to how do you say to put dirt on China or something. So it can be like that. But in the West also, uh, it can be, I talked about Gaza, I talk about Israel, I talk about you know different matters in Ukraine and in different situations, and still my show can be cancelled, and blindly they can be cancelled at the same time or 4 or 5 locations. So you can sense how powerful or at the same time how fragile they are. You touch their nerves and they are so scared. So that make me have a little joy on my side.
What you like to prod
Yeah,
at the
I'm
weakness.
more like someone doing acupuncture, or I found the point.
Look, while I've got your attention, why not sign up to the Downstream newsletter? In it, you can find some reflections on the interview or how I prepped for it, and some quick fire questions that don't make it to the final cut. So, if you want to know what Ai Weiwei's favourite Portuguese dish is, or what Anne Pettifer's nickname is, sign up now. I'm interested in how shaming can be an act of censorship. So being condemned, being shamed, being called anti-Semitic, something like that. Where does the line between censorship and the use of shame to censor and the use of shame to make a moral judgment, where is that line? So, for instance, if you're being called anti Semitic because
Oh,
you've stood up for Gaza,
mhm.
that might be an example of censorship by smearing you, presenting you as dangerous and a racist. Someone else might say, well, no, that's someone making a moral judgment. They're expressing a moral judgment. So where is the line between censorship and making the kinds of moral judgments that we all make socially all the time?
I think the line should be can be very simple and very deep. So the ultimate answer is we have to answer who am I? You know, we are living in a very complex society with different history, language, and religion, and all those kind of issues, and the politics. But still, we have to come to individuals' judgment. You know, we just have to say, today I wake up, and do I want my daughter to be hurt, or do we think the very essential human rights or the very essential individual quality has to be protected? So that answer will be very simple, very clear. I don't know why people being completely confused and not to make the direct response about right or wrong.
I suppose someone would say that they are being honest when they say, I think you're being motivated by anti-Semitism or, anti-Chinese sentiment or whatever else it is. They would say, well, I'm being honest. To me, that is a fact.
Well, honest is a questionable words. You know, I never doubt they have a sincerity to come out wrong conclusions, and very often people would think I'm honest or I feel that way. I said yes, could be the mistake because you're honest and you feel that way. We have to learn. We have to put our judgment in more historical uh, thinking or more human respond. So it's almost no need sophistication on that.
Moving away just a little bit from censorship, I've been thinking about the way in which being surrounded by information, bombarded by information all the time is also doing something to us. So I don't know if you saw, there was that climber, Alex Honnold, who climbed the Taipei Tower without any ropes, and
Sure.
it was being live streamed on Netflix. And I thought, oh my God, are we going to see a guy fall to his death on a live stream?
Mhm.
Um, the opposite of censorship sometimes is seeing the wrong thing. And I do feel sometimes I'm seeing things I'm not supposed to, and it's doing something to my humanity. Do you ever get that
I
feeling?
think you're leading to a very profound question. Um, are we saying too much, or we know more than we can digest? It's almost like in the supermarket. You go to there with like ocean like of the food. But often I standing there, I couldn't come up with mind what I want to pick up, because you same kind of food, you have 200 different types, and crazy even just with any product, it completely confuses you. So what really happens in that is destroy your intuition for to pick up the one which is right. No, very often it's wrong. But often people will tell us what you have been eating, your behaving is harmful, and with information is the same. But we cannot stop it because we have technology, we have people hungry for this kind of shocking sense, and those shocking sense are really blind us to see something really matters when Ukrainians have to see those dead bodies being sent back, or or Gaza already become some kind of resort planning being presented in the Davos. Can you believe this is not a secret plan?
Mm.
It's represent to world leaders in Davos with a kind of shameless, but shameless is not right words even. I think is completely brutal and blind way. I'm not even surprised they would do so, but what I'm surprised is the public response to this kind of presentation is much less than to see someone climb up the tower. That is frightening. So that means humanity can be twisted and manipulated in any way they want to. And all those powerful people know that. They completely think we are, the voiceless or the public or the mass lost the chance. No way you can challenge them.
Do you think it's possible to recover a sense of social morality and a sense of, I'm being distracted by this, I'm going to focus on this? Or are we too far gone?
We are too far gone. And I think as Lenin, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, this revolutionary from Russian, once said you can never form a revolution. A revolution will be formed by itself. So it's about the weather. It's about we are in the period of time. We have 70 years of peace or 80 years and 4 generations of peaceful time. Then our mentality, our way, and our judgment or vision are so much being formed by I don't know, by this kind of moral condition, and it's impossible to make a change. Yeah.
I mean, to use a very Maoist term, is the problem that we don't struggle enough. We haven't had enough
I think
struggle.
freedom, the only meaning about freedom is a struggle. If you think you're not struggle, you're being given a freedom condition, that is wrong. You don't have any freedom if you don't struggle. If you inherit freedom, then you can inherit money or well-being or comfort, but you cannot inherit freedom. Nobody can give to you, except you have to fight. But who want to fight?
It sounds like a permanent revolution.
I think individuals seeking for freedom is a permanent revolution. And without that, the life is not worth it.
You've lived in Europe, you've lived in America, you've lived in China. I feel that I live in a country which has no sense of purpose. We have no shared sense of purpose. You have individual ambitions, priorities, and drives, but nothing that's shared. If I lived in Beijing, would I feel different? And would I feel less depressed?
Yeah, you talk about the individualism in a so-called free society. But if everyone behaves the same way, there's no individualism. If everybody are formed by same kind of ideology, that means they're unified. And but if you compare to China, yes, I do have experience in China. They have very high power in trying to establish some kind of propaganda or narrative from a state. But China do have a long history. So the history only means the water is deeper and there's a lot of mud at the bottom, thousands of years of mud there. So there will be very different interpretation about almost every concept. Because when we talk about civilization, we are talking about how we name everything. And even we name the same thing for different culture, I mean, it's very different. So, yeah, that's what I mean. I think to provide one type of condition is very dangerous because that means the water is shallow and you can see the bottom. You don't. There's not much mystery in there.
I suppose one of the things I'm suggesting is that to be so individualized, to have so many individual rights, and to have very few collective rights or ways to express yourself politically collectively in this country, that is itself a form of powerlessness. I can say what I want as long as I don't say it in a group.
Well, it's a complicated issue when you see a lot of individual. It's very often you go to a bar or restaurant, everybody's their challenge. They make their voice very very loud, but you couldn't hear anything because everybody is doing that, right? But even in a society basically controlled, which is like a gray color, and if you have a little color there, or even light up a candle, then that would be so obvious. So it's all really, you know, our way of understanding ourselves and the society. Uh, you don't have the clear standard. It really relate to the environment.
I think the way you're presented in Western media, they want to present you as a sort of Western liberal individualist. And in our conversation, you talk about individual rights and individual expression as being very important. You also talk about the sort of deep water, deep mud of history and shared purpose. And you also talk about things like ongoing struggle, a sort of permanent revolution for individual rights. How do you describe your political philosophy? Do you describe your political philosophy?
You the first one asked me that question, so let me think a little bit deeper on that. We only have one life, which is very short actually. Now they talk about the can extend it to certain, a few more months or years. But still, the life is giving us a mystery. And of course, if you talk about human life on the planet, it's it's almost unthinkable, how much we know about ourselves. Seems we know everything, but at the same time, seems we are so ignorant because we can never give the clear answer where we really come from and why we have to end this so-called civilization. So all the worries and all the happiness is completely short. Even an insect would have maybe more how do you say excitement than us. Of course, I'm sure insects have much
They
bigger
enjoy their lives
excitement
more.
because we are behaving so-called civilized, or and but still we are blindly moving to a area we cannot control. Look at technology today. It pushes us, and most of the people will be abandoned by their scale, and it's just impossible to even to match how this technology being pushed for only a few people can control the mass, in every way. So I don't have much political, how do you say, profound thing there, but I always trying to maintain the minimal humanity to say, even we don't get anything, but what is left for us? So we still like to say we are imperfect. We would have a how to say infernal life, short life, and during that time we would have some temperature, and we can still have a little expression, and we can share those sense in the better way rather than create a war or make people have a less skill to survive. And yeah, it's very simple.
I mean, maybe it's simple. It doesn't sound simple to me because on the one hand, you're saying, okay, there's a minimal level here, which is my belief in humanity and my regard for humanity. And on the other hand, you talk about your art as being a form of activism, a form of political challenge. There is a politics there, even if you don't have a name for yourself. Is it maybe just easier to say, I'm against whatever the people in power are for, wherever I am?
Only because if I compare myself like a piece of a leaf come from a tree, falling down, but not on land, but on a stream. So the stream carries me to very dramatic conditions. I keep changing my angle to look at what happens on the on the land, and it changes all the time. And I try to hold on. It's not easy.
Are you suspicious of ideology and ideological thinking?
Yeah, I'm very suspicious about that because we all conditioned.
I suppose some people would say, I might say, that it's given me a structure to my thinking and a way of looking at things. It's not the Bible, it doesn't tell me what to think, but it gives me a shape for my own analysis.
But it can come from study or learning, but also can come from your experience. But in modern society, even our experience are too much the same, so that could be less interesting.
I've got one final question for you because the thing I was most interested in the book was when you were writing about AI and you were writing about the way in which AI is not a form of intelligence, it's just a load of assumptions packed into a system. And I was wondering whether you thought it was possible for artists to use AI in a way which has integrity.
First, AI is the highest form of a mediocre uh, thinking because it's a powerful collecting of all the information has been there. They tend to not make mistakes, try to get the best out of it, but it's really mediocre because they don't have they avoid to make mistakes. They want to be perfect. So that's their, how do you say, the the dead end of AI. But artists, if you talk about artists is trying to find something never been established. So if it's real artist, but of course we see most artists it's not like that. But a real one, or what really interests me is I trying to find something which is so rare and never been really established by language. So you have to control language to illustrate your emotion. That means you come out so-called freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is not you can just express what you want to say, but rather what you want to say if that is real enough to be speak out.
I mean, I read somewhere that you became very interested in Andy Warhol's work when you were in New York. And
Mhm.
he obviously was very famous for using images that already existed, repurposing them in a way which was new. Is there a way for artists to do that with AI?
I think it would be too late. Andy Warhol did it half century ago without his pioneer for social media. Did magazine, did television, did Andy Warhol's film and writing and party. He organized parties and Andy Warhol studio. It's all half century ahead of time. Today, those things are very banal. Everybody's doing that, and it's not really interesting anymore.
Ai Weiwei, thank you so much for joining us on Downstream.
Thank you.